I almost quit coding when I was 16, and now I work at Google. Now, I'm not going to lie and say that I haven't had a bit of a privileged life, but my parents aren't rich. I didn't get amazing grades. I kind of slacked off for most of high school. And even when I did try in university, I didn't really do all that well. So, how'd I go from somebody who found coding dreadful to someone who now has a YouTube channel that tries to get anybody to try coding, at least once? Well, in this video, I'm going to answer some of your questions, including this one. So, to start off, when did I learn to code? My first experience with coding was in grade 10, I believe, where we were learning Visual Basic in a course in high school. And I don't think our teacher knew much about programming, and neither did we. And I did not like it. It was pretty terrible. I remember I made a video game for my final project, which was you played as Santa, and you had to get presents to, I don't even know if there was a sleigh. That would have made more sense. But you had to get presents from the start to the ending. And there was walls you had to get by, and moving walls, all of which I hand programmed, like the left, right, even tops and downs. They were lines. They weren't really walls. All the collision was hand programmed, so it was pretty terrible. Hated it. Wasn't fun. Playing the game was okay, but it wasn't like a great game. So yeah, didn't really like it that much. But I did always like video games in general. So I kind of had an inkling of, loving technology because, well, that's where video games come from. So I was always interested in technology. Then I got into university where I still didn't know what to do. So I decided to go in with an undeclared major where I took human genetics, sociology, psychology, English, Greek and Roman culture, which I failed. Thought it was about wars. It was about pottery. And a programming course, which was actually on Flash, which it doesn't exist anymore. But hey, it was fun. So this kind of leads us into the next question, which is, when did I decide that programming was something that I wanted to do? Well, of all those courses that I took in university for my first year, I failed one, and I got a 50-something in two of the other ones. And in programming, got like a 90-something. So I was good at it, and it was fun. So I figured, why not? Let's switch into computing. And after switching into computing, I found that I really did like it. Programming was something that was interesting. It was a new thing to do. I was learning more and more about computers and how I can make them do my bidding, basically. And that kind of led me to the answer for why do I love coding? And for me, I've never really been a super artsy person. I like art. I can imagine art, but I can't really get it down on like paper or anything like that. Not exactly musically talented either. So, but hey, I can program stuff. I can make basically anything I want, just with a keyboard and a computer. So it was pretty cool to actually say like, hey, look what I've made from nothing, right? I can just create a file on a computer, name it with the right extension, write a bunch of stuff into it, and now I have a website. I mean, it's not available to anybody, but you know what I mean. Another reason I love coding is because it's an industry that is always changing, right? Like you can never know everything with coding. Like every week at this point, something new is coming out. Like ChatGPT comes out with some new thing where now it can, talk to you and respond to you and whatnot. It's always changing. The capabilities of what you can do with programming is always expanding. And I think it's really cool to kind of be in an industry where, as somebody who likes to learn new things, where the kind of possibilities are a little bit limitless. So I like that. One more thing that I would say that I love about coding, well, one of probably many, is that there's so many languages, right? There's so many kind of, like programming itself is a tool, but there's also tools to use the tool, right? There's the languages you use to use the programming tool. And each of them kind of have their own things that they're good or maybe not as good at. So like for me, my first language was Visual Basic. hated it. Next language was ActionScript. Liked it, doesn't really exist anymore. Then after that, I switched into computing, and my first real language that still exists, was Java, which I learned from a textbook over a summer, which was not a nice experience, but then I knew Java. This kind of leads actually into another question, which is, what languages do I know? Some of the languages that I would say I actually know are Java, JavaScript, Python, Objective-C, C#, Swift, and Kotlin. But then I've also worked with C, C++, Haskell, Assembly, Go, and probably a few others that I either don't remember or have blocked from my memory because I did not like them. The kind of good news, though, is that once you've worked with so many different languages, you kind of just have a general understanding of how languages work. So basically, any language that I encounter now, I can read for the most part. Generally, there's some kind of specific keyword that I would have to go and look up to fully understand something, but I can kind of get the gist of almost any language. But what language would I like to learn next? Well, the answer for that right now, because sometimes it always changes, the answer right now is C++, because I've been tinkering around with the Unreal Engine for making games. I've made stuff in Unity before, so I figured gonna try Unreal now. But C++ is kind of the underlying programming language for Unreal stuff. They have a blueprinting language, which means you don't have to code. But then if you want to do extra stuff or more stuff or just write it in code, C++ is the way to go. Another one that's kind of been interesting for me is Golang, because a friend of mine has written some pretty cool stuff in Golang. So I wanted to kind of experience that a little bit. And maybe Rust, because I've heard very good things about it. Everybody who uses it seems to love it. And it kind of seems like some people are saying it is like the new evolution of C, which I don't know enough about to comment on, but that intrigues me. Because I don't love C that much, but maybe Rust is more fun than that, so we'll see. Get it. So one language that I've actually learned more recently, though, which might surprise you, is Python. I learned it in part because of this, like YouTube. I understood it before and, maybe not as thoroughly as I do now, but it's a great language to know. Another question was, what is the best reason to use Python? I think that probably differs from person to person, but for me personally, I think Python is amazing at a few things. Number one, it's really good for making quick and simple programs. You can write a Python script really quickly and kind of have it do whatever you need. It's not that complicated. You can usually write things in fewer lines with Python than you can in some other languages. Another thing is AI-related work or machine learning work. Python is basically the go-to language for anything like that because it has all these libraries that allow you to manipulate things as needed for that type of work. Another thing is the community and the libraries or packages within Python. Like I've used some awesome packages in the past few months, like PyAuto GUI, some TTS stuff, whether it's, from large companies like Google or other companies or open source things. There's also been voice to text. There's a lot of really cool things. And I'm kind of always looking out for other cool libraries that can do some cool stuff. So if you have any suggestions for any other libraries that you think I should take a look at, leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to check them out and maybe make a YouTube video about them. We'll see. Finally, Python is a great language for beginners to learn to code. So for me, who's making a YouTube channel, who's trying to introduce people to code, Python's perfect because half the time when you write Python, if you speak English and can read English, you can probably just read it and understand, at least to some extent, what it's doing. The next question is, do I think everyone should learn to code? This is an interesting one, actually. I don't actually think that everyone should learn to code. Coding is, unless you do it professionally, is ultimately a hobby, right? It's another thing you can do. Like, I'm not somebody who can do woodworking. I can get by. I can saw something, right? But I'm not going to like build a cabinet. But that's like a hobby. You could do it as a profession, but you don't really need it in your day-to-day necessarily. Coding, I think, is similar, right? It's a tool. It's something you can use in your spare time or not, but you don't need it really. I will say though that coding is something that I think everybody should try once, at least once, right? Like most other hobbies, try it. If you like it, awesome. If you don't, at least you tried it. I think one of the issues though is that programming is often perceived as this thing that you need to be really smart in order to understand or do. And really you don't. Like I hate math. I'm terrible at math. And you know, I needed to learn math to get my computer science degree, but I basically don't use math that much in my day-to-day, right? If you know how to add 1 to a number, that's almost all you need to do for programming, right? Like a for loop. If you're just adding 1 to a count, that's basically it. Now, of course, there's more complicated stuff you can do, and if you want to do AI stuff, then you're probably going to need to know math a bit more. Statistics, probably. But still, it's not as hard as some people may think it is. Also related to learning to code, the next question is X too old to learn programming or to start programming? Where X is 35, 40, 50, 60, 21, who knows? The answer is no. It's just like any other hobby. You can start it whenever you want in your life. I think it's great if people can start it early, because if they start it and they decide that they like it, then hey, it's a hobby you have earlier on in your life. That's fantastic. But no, I don't think there's any reason that you can't start learning to code later on in life or at a different, when you're 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 or whatever it may be. I think you can still always learn. There's one slight caveat here in that there are a couple of requirements for learning to code, right? Like to actually practice coding, you need a computer. You can kind of get by on like an iPad or something, I guess, but you ideally have like a laptop or a computer. You also need time, but that's also the case with any hobby. I think one thing that actually gets a lot of people into coding is they try to solve a problem or kind of do something that they think was cool, and they Google it a little bit, or they look it up on YouTube of like, oh, I like how can I get all of these values from this website or something like that, right? And then they learn, oh, I can just use the Chrome dev tools and write some very simple JavaScript to get all these values rather than highlighting Control-C, Control-V a bunch, right? I think there's little projects that people kind of encounter that sparks that interest in programming. And I'm hopeful that people can kind of see those projects through things like what I make, so that hopefully that can spark a little bit of interest and maybe start that journey with programming. Next question is, what is one of the coolest projects I have ever worked on? This is an interesting one, and I would say two things come to mind. The first one is my first project that I did with other people, which was actually before I basically knew how to code anything. Was back in university. It was during the summer of after my first year of university. It was in like 2010, 2011, something like that. And me and some friends, we made a website where you could mass text people, because apps basically weren't a thing, like Discord wasn't a thing at the time. So we thought it would be cool to be able to, because everybody had a phone, be able to just text everybody. And this was kind of like the idea of if you had a gaming group or something like that, then you could just send a text to everybody to say like, hey, going online, or everybody be online at this time, or something like that. So we made it for fun. I don't think it exists anymore, but it was pretty cool. The most interesting part, which I actually didn't work on, but which was pretty cool, was we like hacked a cell phone to actually like make our code run on the cell phone to send these text messages. It wasn't like a text messaging service that we used, because that also didn't exist or it cost too much. But either way, we did a cell phone, which was Kind of cool. The second project is this app I made for this competition called the Microsoft Imagine Cup. I don't remember exactly what year this was, but the purpose of this app was to basically help shift colors on computers so that people who were colorblind could use the computer more closely to somebody who's not colorblind. One of my friends on the team, we had a team of 3. Him and I were both the engineers on the team, and then we had one person on like the business side of things. And yeah, I basically would show him a picture and see if he could see, you know, the numbers and like the blobby text or whatever. And then I would turn on the app that I made and see if he could read out the numbers. And sure enough, he could. So it was pretty exciting to kind of like actually help somebody. He used it. He played a lot of Guild Wars in his spare time sometimes. And if you've ever played big games or MMOs like that, typically red is bad and green is good. But guess what? When you're red-green colorblind, it's all brown. Doesn't help you that much. So yeah, the app, he just ran it on his computer and used it on top of these other games, and he was able to play these games much more effectively. So it was pretty cool to kind of have that experience and have that like impact on somebody. And finally, to kind of like plug this channel a little bit, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff that I kind of put up on this channel, even though it's, you know, can be squeezed into like a 15-minute video. There's some cool stuff that you can make, you know, with Python with not a lot of time, like controlling your computer with Python, making a voice assistant, making a simple game, you know, like getting data from a website, whatever it might be. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really interesting projects you can do. So I have some favorites now, but I think I'll probably be adding to that list in the future as well. Another question is, why did I make this channel? The main reason I made this channel is because I really enjoy teaching things that I love, right? It's like spreading the good word about programming. And it just kind of helps that I think at least pretty good at programming. Not an expert. I mean, I get paid to program, so maybe that makes me an expert, but you know, I'm not like some genius or anything like that. I'm just a normal guy who likes to program and, you know, programs for a living. But yeah, I think being able to kind of explain programming and hopefully make it so people who thought it was something that they couldn't do, maybe kind of pull that sheet off a little bit and hopefully make it so that they're thinking, oh, you know what, maybe I can try this. Maybe, oh, that does look fun. Oh, I only have to write 15 lines of this code and I can actually read that code. It kind of makes sense. And now I can do all this cool stuff. That's amazing, right? I think the possibilities are endless with that. I don't know if I'm a good teacher, by the way. So I've kind of just been making like tutorial videos. Yeah, leave a comment down below. If you think I can improve any part of my teaching, let me know. I'd be happy to improve as much as I can, if I can. So we'll see. Another thing for why I've done this on YouTube is because it allows me to actually have like an impact on anyone, right? Anybody who decides to watch one of my videos, there's a chance, ever so slight, that maybe if they didn't think they could program, maybe they will kind of think that they maybe could a little bit more, at least by the end. That's the goal. You know, I've taught programming like in libraries. I've spoken in schools before. I've had interns. I've mentored people in universities. I still do that every year. But on YouTube, it's kind of like limitless, right? You can just reach as many people as you can, and hopefully at least one of them, you know, you have some form of impact on. That's the goal of the channel. I'm always surprised when I look at this, but like, for instance, we have viewers from the US. I gotta read this from the list because this list is too long. From US, India, Germany, UK, Canada, Australia, Philippines, Poland, South Africa, Brazil, Sweden, and even more. This is just like the list of the top. I don't remember exactly how much percentage for viewership, but it's amazing to know that people from everywhere around the world are watching any of this kind of stuff and hopefully learning something and sparking a little bit of interest in programming. My final reason for making a YouTube channel is that I kind of wanted to like stretch the creativity for what I do in my spare time. I write projects and for work, and then I have personal projects sometimes I make. But YouTube kind of allows me to do that in like a different format through videos, right? And I get to try and improve script writing and all that kind of stuff. And also just like explore programming things that I wouldn't necessarily explore. Like I probably never would have written like making a voice assistant. Like when I made it, I was like, it's actually that easy? That's crazy. How is that possible? How can I write this many lines of code and I have a working voice assistant that, I can basically add whatever functionality I want to. All right, so back to the original question at the start of this video. Was there any one thing that got me from hating to code to working at Google? For me, it was kind of a mix of all the things I've mentioned. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but I mean, I found a love for coding through, finding these interesting projects and realizing that the code I was writing in the language I was writing it in, I didn't have to use that language. There were ways to do it that were more enjoyable. I found that I can have an impact on people, whether it's through teaching people to code or writing software that, millions of people use, or even just writing software like the Colorblind app that, help a few people. It's just like helping people feels good, right? And this is one of the ways I can do it. That's one of the reasons that I applied to Google, so I could learn more. I don't know if I'll always be at Google for the rest of my life, but it's been a fun ride so far. Thank you all for watching, and thank you all so much for the support for this channel. The fact that I have like 1,000 subscribers, actually 1,146 as of recording this, is mind-blowing to me. I never thought that I would actually get to 1,000 ever, let alone within like another few months of actually starting to kind of pick up this channel again. So really, thank you. So remember, I'm Jake. You are all super awesome. And this has been a bit about me. Cheers.